Joining us in this moment is Ann McGrath, former party president, former national director of the NDP. Ann, good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
So this is not your first convention. You've attended many. You've organized others. I'm wondering if when you compare the mood right now in Winnipeg versus past, how would you describe it? Because this is a moment in time where the NDP faces some very big challenges.
Yeah, there are two really important things here. First of all, I think you're right that we've faced some very serious challenges, and we've been here before. As a matter of fact, the last time I was at a national convention in Winnipeg was in 2001, where the big debate was whether or not we should just dissolve the party and start something new. It was called the New Politics Initiative, and it was following a decade where we had lost official party status, and we were in a really important rebuilding phase. So that's one thing. It's like these moments do come and go, not just in our party, but in other parties as well. So that's one thing that I think is important to kind of keep in mind in all of this. The other is that despite the kind of, predictions of our demise, as to misquote Mark Twain, people here there's a large crowd here. People are enthusiastic, they're energetic, the debates have been very lively. I think there's a real sense that we have an opportunity, once we have the leadership question settled, to really focus on that rebuild, to recruit new candidates, to get candidates ready to go in their ridings, to get solid teams around them. Real focus in this convention on grassroots organizing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I will say, as one that's been observing this convention at a distance, what is clear when I'm listening to the delegates is not a call for the NDP to be anything different other than to be more NDP, to be speaking out more for workers' rights, more about the working class, more about speaking out against the conflict that's taking place right now in Iran. Getting to the working class side of it, because we know that the Conservatives have challenged the NDP on that message. Did the party stray too far away from its labor roots to be relevant to the Labour voters?
Well, I'm sure that there are people who would argue that that's the case, but I would probably argue that many of the things that we have worked on over the last few years have been very core and central to the working class. Things like anti-scab legislation, dental care, pharmacare. I think that those are issues that we have been championing, where we have achieved some results, and that are really incredibly important to the working class. So I don't think it's a matter of straying from the working class. I think a lot of the discussion around that actually I would characterize as sort of style issues rather than substance issues. The NDP campaigned on, for instance, on a wealth tax, fought for childcare, all of those kinds of things. But there is a difference, I think, in style, and probably a bit of a difference in how much emphasis you place on Parliament itself and the importance of being in Parliament and the importance of winning seats. So I think that may be something as well. And of course, there is constantly the discussion about relationships across the country, whether it's with the trade union movement or with provincial parties.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned a relationship with the provincial party, and we certainly have heard that people, delegates expressing that they wish the federal party would lean in and learn a bit from the provincial wings. As one who's worked both for the federal party as well as the party in Alberta, what do you think the provincial wings can teach the federal party in this moment in time?
Well, I think the central thing is that you can have all of the great ideas that you want, but if you can't get some things implemented, it doesn't really amount to much. I think that we don't have the luxury of being like a debating club. I think that it is our responsibility, our duty, our role to put forward strong progressive ideas, to campaign on them, and to elect people to get those things done. And the provincial parties, like whether it was the NDP government in Alberta, or if we're looking at governments here in Manitoba or in British Columbia, you can see that when the NDP has power, whether it is as government or in other ways, we actually focus on the things that matter to people. Cost of living is being central to that. The housing crisis, employment issues, particularly for young people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What about the issues around, for example, natural resources? Not surprisingly, that is a big issue right now, especially since the current Prime Minister has signed that memorandum of understanding with the province of Alberta. Is that going to be a difficult cleavage for the party to kind of find common ground on?
I don't think so. I think that there are a lot. I mean, I think first of all, I think that Canadians are very focused on the trade disputes and other things with the United States right now. I think that there's a lot of opposition, for instance, to the illegal war that's taking place right now. But definitely, trade issues are front and center, I think, for most Canadians. And I think people recognize that we have resources, and we need to be able to use those resources responsibly in an environmentally sustainable way, but we actually do need to, I think, use those resources. And there are differences of opinion about how you do that. But I think that, central to that is how we work across those differences and try to come up with good solutions that will benefit Indigenous communities, First Nations communities, will benefit workers, that will benefit the people who actually own the resources.
Well, it will be interesting to see who wins the leadership tomorrow and how they navigate that issue. But whoever wins tomorrow, and I'm wondering what your advice would be to the eventual leader about what their first job, their first priority needs to be.
Well, I think the first job of any party leader, and I've worked with many, is to bridge any of the divisions that have emerged. Inevitably there are divisions during a leadership race. They're hard because I know for myself, for instance, I have friends who are working in all different leadership campaigns, and so when the leadership campaign is over and a new leader is elected, it's really important for that new leader to be humble enough and smart enough, actually, to reach out and pull the party together, reach out to their opponents and their opponents' camps, and bring them in and bring everybody together. I think that is job number one. And the other thing, of course, as I mentioned before, is really focusing and strengthening the relationships with the provincial parties across the country.
Well, Ann, the convention continues, but for now, thank you for this. I'll bug you again in the near future, I promise you.
All right, thanks, Michael.
Okay.